Hey y'all, it's Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I thought we could go book shopping together. I have a couple of things on my list. I really want to go into an actual bookstore and look around and just kind of see what catches my eye. And so it'll probably only wind up being a couple of books because Barnes& and Noble is rather pricey, but I just thought that I would take you along with me because I have a couple of things in mind. I really have a lot on my radar this year, and a lot of them are new releases. So something that I am really interested in and that I really hope they have is Sirens and Muses by, I think, Antonia Angress, which is a literary fiction, but I think it kind of tilts a little bit, if not dark academia, just kind of academia, because it's set at a school and it's about art. Last year, when I was kind of reading my unhinged literary fiction there at the end of the year, that is one that popped up time and again as a recommendation to me, as something that you might like if you liked Tender as the Flesh or A Certain Hunger. And so I really do hope that they have that. That's really at the top of my list because I feel pretty sure that I'm going to love it. So I really do want to pick that up physically, but I also really want Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This has been on my radar since they released the cover a few months ago, and I think this is probably more appropriately called cozy fantasy, but I think it's like historical fantasy, and that's what really has me intrigued, and also kind of like an academic rivals to lovers type situation, but I think it's just more cozy than that. And I think probably the romance is not the main component of the book, but that's what I'm really on the hunt for. Those two are the ones that are at the top of my list, but I am open to other things. It's very, very hard for me to make purchases in a Barnes& and Noble anymore just because of how expensive books have gotten, particularly in that kind of realm. And so I normally now just wait to get something used, or I wait until I see that it goes on sale somewhere, particularly if I can get it on Kindle. I know that now and again, it'll come up for $2.99 on Kindle, and I just can't rationalize paying full price for a lot of books unless it is something I'm really excited about. That's why my Book of the Month subscription is one of my favorite things, because they are still giving you a pretty great deal on a new release. So I'm interested to see what I find. I'm probably going to make note of other things that I see that I might want to pick up later, specifically that I might want to pick up on Kindle. I do want to say it is not always cheaper to pick up the ebook version than to get a physical copy. That's the honest truth. And I really can't believe that. That's something that it's hard for me to wrap my mind around. But still, I am now kind of in a Kindle haze. I'm really obsessed with my Kindle, and I have been since I got a new Kindle back in October. So some things I'm just a little bit more interested in reading digitally now, and I never thought I was going to become that person. So I think I'm going to be more selective in future about stuff that comes in for me physically. So I'm excited. Those two are at the top of my list. Those are really the ones that I want. So let's go. Let's see what we find. Well, we are back. I saw so much that I am intrigued by, and one thing I am kind of disappointed by is that they didn't have Sirens and Muses. And so I was really disappointed by that, but I did wind up getting 2 books. One thing I want to say is that even if I don't buy anything, I just really enjoy the experience of being in a bookstore. And I think it's something that the past couple of years have robbed from us a little bit, is just kind of interacting with the storefront. And I know I live in a pretty barren area in terms of bookstores. I know a lot of people have like Books A Million. A lot of people have several different indie bookstores to choose from. And essentially what we're left with here is a Barnes & Noble and a used bookstore. And the used bookstore is my favorite place on earth. It absolutely is, but they are very hit and miss, and you can't go in there with any kind of plan. And so I just really enjoy going into a place like Barnes & Noble and looking at new releases that I maybe haven't heard of. And I think it's really unique to see something that you haven't heard of when you're someone who is on BookTube or who watches BookTube a lot or Book Talk, anything like that, where you're just constantly inundated with what people are currently talking about. I think it's interesting to see a book that you actually haven't heard of online somewhere. And I feel like that's rarer and rarer for me. And it does kind of play with me a little bit because sometimes I wonder, is there a reason that I haven't heard of this? And so sometimes I'm less willing to take a chance on something if I haven't heard about it. But I just feel like it opens up my horizons so much more. For example, one book that I was really intrigued by that I didn't get because it was under 250 pages and it was going for $16, and I just was not computing that math. I was like, $16 for less than 250 pages? Are y'all okay? But it was called O Caledonia, and this is like a forgotten modern classic that is for fans of like Shirley Jackson, I think it said. And I think it is a murder mystery that's set in Scotland. And the cover was gorgeous. I guess it is something that Barnes & Noble specifically was interested in re-releasing. And I saw several things like that, like little forgotten books that they wanted to re-release with beautiful covers. So that's one that I am definitely intrigued by, and I think I'll probably get that on Kindle. But that is something that I have heard literally no one talk about. I have not seen that anywhere else. And so I think that's really exciting, and it's why I think I really enjoy going into a bookstore, is just getting the experience of seeing what's out there and adding more to my TBR. It's so hard for me to remember now because I have been a consumer of BookTube for so long, and it's hard for me to remember the days where I literally just walked into a bookstore and something that caught my eye is what I picked up. It's very rare now that I enter a bookstore without any kind of plan or without knowing that there are certain things that I'm interested in. And so I want to replicate that every now and again. I just love to go into a bookstore without a plan. Now, the 2 books that I wound up with are books that I have heard of and are books that have been very high on my priority list for a very long time. And so one of them is one of the books that I really wanted to get while there, and that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is a gorgeous naked hardcover. I can't believe this. And when I was checking out, the cashier was like, this didn't come with a cover on it. And I said, no. And she said, do you know where you found this? Because I honestly don't care what the book is about. I'm buying it because it's so pretty. And I said, yeah, valid. And so I told her, and that's really basically why I'm picking up the book. Like, let's be honest, the book is beautiful, but since it has come out, and I think it came out last month in January, it has had such incredible word of mouth. And so I feel like it's going to be something that clicks with me because Carrie from Carrie Can Read and Carrie Cakes, she really enjoyed this. And I find that I often agree with her on fantasies, especially fantasy romances. One of the questions I have about this book is just how prominent the romance is, because I think that's what I think sounds really cute, is that she believes in fairies and she's going up into Norway, I think, to like prove their existence. And her academic rival doesn't believe they exist, and he also goes. And I just think that sounds really charming and cute. And it also sounds very springy. So I'm really excited to get into this. And I just love the fact that it's set in Scandinavia somewhere. That's what really has me excited. And so I just think I'm probably really going to enjoy this, whether the romance is a large part of the plot or not. This does kind of lead me into an interesting discussion of how they have rearranged Barnes& Noble, and it basically just doesn't have any cohesion to me because this was only located in the new releases. And there were several things that were only located in the new releases section, but weren't on the shelf where they should have been in the fantasy or the literature section. And I just found that odd that they didn't at least split them and put one in a different location, because I found that there were a lot of people who looked pretty confused by the new layout. And I think the thing is that Barnes & Noble has essentially eliminated things that they don't think are going to sell. And so I think it's interesting. I'm really interested to see how that works for them, but I just kind of found it odd that when I'm looking at a regular shelf and I couldn't find something, I really just needed to go to the new releases section. And new release was very, very loose because there were things there that were released 6 months ago. And I don't know if that really qualifies as a new release anymore, but I just think their new organization is interesting. I'll be interested to see how well it works for them. The other book I got is The Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake. And I'll tell you, something that was in the back of my mind when I went into Barnes & Noble was that I really wanted her new romance, Alone in the Ether or something like that, because I have heard a lot of people don't like it because it's so pretentious in terms of writing. And I was like, I'm probably gonna love it. I am probably gonna love it. I actually did not see that anywhere, but thinking back to the new layout of Barnes & Noble, I wonder if I was just in the correct section. Like maybe it was there with Barnes & Noble like staff picks. So I don't know. I need to think about that. But the Atlas 6 is a book that has taken the world by storm, and it took Book Talk by storm specifically a couple of years ago. And I started reading the Kindle version at the time, but then it was announced that this had been picked up by a major publisher, and Olivie Blake said on her social media, no matter what, you were going to have to read the published version to understand the rest of the series because she made so many changes in editing. And so I did not finish that ebook version, I think, all with the intention of getting the traditionally published version. This is a dark academia about a society of librarians. Basically, they are protecting the Library of Alexandria, which never burned in this world. And so I think it sounds really good because a lot of what people talk about here is the writing. And a lot of what people are really interested in with this series as well is apparently the character dynamics and the relationships between the characters. I think there's a lot of couples swapping. I think there are 6 main characters and you're not really sure who the main couples are, which I think is super exciting. And this also features academic rivals to lovers, which I have to say, even though I can't think of anything that I have read with that specific trope in mind, I have to say I think that's a trope that I'm pretty into. The physical edition also has these really gorgeous illustrations, which I think the Kindle edition did as well, but I'm really excited to see them in person. I hope that I enjoy this. I really did want to wait until I knew that the second book had come out and that the third book was on the horizon, because I'm getting to the point where I just can't remember books anymore. Like in series, when I pick up the next book in a series, I cannot remember what came before. And so I really wanted to be able to read this and then move into the second one immediately if I wanted to. So I'm really excited about this. I think these are both books that are going to be very high on my priority list in the coming weeks. So I'm really excited about reading them. I would love to know down below what you have recently been picking up and hauling. But I really had fun doing this. We should do this again, and maybe I will vlog better the next time. But that's going to be all for me today. I hope you're all having a great week. Happy reading. Goodbye.